Suspicious. As the days passed, Telly fell into the routines of the smoke. There was something comforting about the exhaustion of hard work. All her life, Telly had been troubled by insomnia, lying awake most nights thinking about arguments she'd had, or wanted to have, or things she should have done differently. But here, in the smoke, her mind was shut off the moment her head hit the pillow, which wasn't even a pillow, just her new sweater stuffed into a cotton bag. Telly didn't know how long she was going to stay there. She hadn't come to a decision about whether to activate the pendant, but she knew that nothing about it at all the time would drive her crazy. So she decided to put it out of her mind. One day she might wake up and realize that she couldn't stand to live her entire life as an ugly, no matter who it hurt or what it cost. But for the moment, Dr. Cable would wait. Forgetting her troubles was easy in the smoke. Life was much more intense than in the city. She bathed in a river so cold that she had to jump in screaming, and she ate food pulled from the fire hot enough to burn her tongue, which city food never did. Of course, she missed shampoo that didn't sting her eyes, and flush the toilet. She'd learned to her horror what latrines were, and the mostly med spread. But however blistered her hands became, Telly felt stronger than ever before. She could work all day at the railway site, then race David and Shay home on hoverboards. Her backpack was full of more scrap metal than she could have lifted in a month before. She learned from David how to repair her clothes with a needle and thread, how to tell raptors from their prey, and even how to clean fish, which turned out to be not nearly as bad as gutting them up in the bio class. The physical beauty of the smoke also cleared her mind of worries. Every day seemed to change the mountain, the sky, and the surrounding valleys, making them spectacular in a completely new way. Nature, at least, didn't need an operation to be beautiful. It was. It just was. One morning on the way to the railroad track, David pulled his board up alongside Tally's. He rode silently for a while, taking the familiar turns with his usual grace. Over the last 2 weeks, she'd learned that his jacket was actually made of leather, real dead animals, but she'd gradually gotten used to the idea. The Smokies hunted, but they were like the rangers, killing only species that didn't belong in this part of the world, or that had gotten out of control thanks to the Rusty's meddling. With its random patches, the jacket would probably look silly on anyone else, but it suited David. Somehow, as if he was growing up here in the wild, allowed him to fuse with the animals that had donated their skins to his clothes. And it probably didn't hurt that he had actually made the jacket himself. He spoke up suddenly. "I've got a present for you." "A present? Really?" By now, Tally understood that nothing in the smoke ever lost its value. Nothing was discarded or given away just because it was old or broken. Everything was repaired, refitted, and recycled. And if one of Smoky's couldn't put it to use, it was traded to another. Few things were ever given away lightly. "Yeah, really?" David angled closer and handed her a small bundle. She unwrapped it, following the familiar route down the stream almost without looking. It was a pair of gloves, handmade in light brown leather. She shoved the bright city-made wrapping paper into her pocket, then pulled the gloves onto her blistered hands. "Thanks. They fit perfectly." He nodded. "I made them when I was about your age. They're a little bit small for me these days." Tally smiled, wishing she could hug him. When they spread their arms, take a hard turn, she held his hand for a second. Flexing her fingers, Telly found that the gloves were soft and pliant, the palms worn pale from the years of use. White lines across the finger joints revealed how they had fitted David's hands. They were wonderful. "Come on," David said. "It's not like they're magic or anything." "No, but they've they've got they've got something. History," Tally realized. In the city, she'd owned lots of things, particularly anything she wanted came out of the wall. But the city things were disposable and replaceable, as interchangeable as the t-shirt, jacket, and skirt, combinations of dorm uniforms. Here in the smoke, objects grew old, carrying their histories with them in dings and scratches and tatters. David chuckled at her and sped up, joining Shay at the front of the pack. When they got to the railroad site, David announced that they had to clear more track, using vibrosaws to cut through the vegetation that had grown up around the metal rails. "What about the trees?" Croy asked. "What about them? Do you have to chop them down?" Tally asked. David shrugged. "Shrub trees like these aren't good for much, but we won't waste them. We'll take them back to the smoke for burning." "Burning?" Tally said. "The Smokies usually only cut down trees from the valley, not the rest of the mountain." These trees had been growing there for decades, and David wanted to use them just to cook a meal. She looked at Shay for support, but her friend's expression was carefully neutral. She probably agreed, but didn't want to argue with David in front of everyone about how to run his project. "Yes, burning," he said. "And after we've salvaged the track, we'll replant. But a row of useful trees where the railway used to be." The 5 others looked at him silently. He spun a saw in his hand, anxious to get started, but aware that he didn't have their full support yet. "You know, David," Roy said, "these trees aren't useless. They protect the underbrush from sunlight, which keeps the soil from eroding." "Okay, you win. Instead of planting some other kind of trees, we'll let the forest take back the land. All the crappy scrubs and underneath you want." "But do we have to cut them?" Astrid asked. David took a slow breath. Clear cutting was the word for what the Rusties had done to the old forest, felling every tree, killing every living thing, turning entire countries into grazing land, while rainforests had been consumed, reduced from millions of interlocking species to a bunch of cows eating grass, a vast web of life traded for the cheap hamburgers. "Look, we're not clear cutting. All we're doing is pulling out the garbage that the Rusties left behind," David said. "It just takes a little surgery to do it." "We could chop around the trees," Tally said. "Only cut into them where we need to, like you said, surgery." "Okay, fine," he chuckled. "Let's see what you think of these trees after you've had to hack a few out of the ground."